I have a theory. I have a sports theory in regards to this weekend, which is, by the way, one of my favorite weekends of the year. Although the weather doesn't look great. But I have a sports theory as it relates to you, the people of Indianapolis, Indiana. And it's not about the Pacers and the Cavs who get set on Sunday. It's not about the Colts who have a new stable of draft picks, one of which is going to join us on the program today and perhaps shed light on another draft pick because they played against each other during the regular season. It's not about one of the great new venues in central Indiana who has a super cool event taking place tomorrow night and a new head coach to the area that's going to join us on the program. My sports theory has nothing to do with any of those things. But it does take a backseat temporarily because just before we came on the air, we have breaking news from the National Basketball Association. And it is news that is not necessarily local, nor is it good news, although I hope it is not taken with the bad news that it could be. Gregg Popovich, the Basketball Hall of Famer, of course, native to Indiana, and multiple champion head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, who has been on leave, for lack of a better phrase, medical leave, I guess, from the Spurs after suffering a mild stroke on November 2nd. His health has been obviously something of great speculation in terms of the fact that when and if he will return to the Spurs. The announcement today, Basketball Hall of Famer Gregg Popovich will no longer be the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs and is instead transitioning to a full-time role as the president of basketball operations. But in terms of being on the sidelines, Popovich, who obviously is one of the more surly personalities, but at the same time endearing personalities within the NBA, the third winningest coach in playoff wins in NBA history and one of 5 coaches to win at least 5 titles, along with Phil Jackson, Red Auerbach, John Kunla, and Pat Riley, as Gregg Popovich now, he has been hospitalized again since April the 15th after a medical incident that took place at a San Antonio restaurant. So certainly hope the best for Gregg Popovich, but one of the best coaches in league history at the age of 76. It would appear his coaching career has come to an end. Here is my theory in regards to this weekend. There's always been this rivalry between Indiana and Kentucky. I don't know if you know it or not, but the origin of the term Hoosiers. Now, there are a gabillion different theories on where the term Hoosiers comes from. Yeah, of course, you hear the one about there was a fight in a bar and a guy got his ear ripped off. Somebody said, "Whose ear?" There's another one about the fact that people would go door-to-door knocking and you would say, "Who's there?" The most plausible explanation that I have heard, I have no idea the origin of this explanation. But to me, it is the most plausible and is the one that I have always gone with, is that in the original settlement of the Ohio River area, the foreman for the group that was essentially clearing out a lot of the land on the north side of the Ohio River was a gentleman by the name of John Hooser. Some say Hooser, others say Hoozer. I don't even know if this is a real figure. But as legend has it, when the workers that worked for him on the north side of the Ohio River would then be out and about and someone would ask what they were doing in the region, they would answer, "I'm part of Hooser's men." And that became, "I'm part of the Hoosiers," which meant the north side of the Ohio River, thus the area that would be known as Indiana, and thus Hoosiers. I have no idea if that's true or not, but Indiana and Kentucky have always been two states that have had a rivalry with one another. Certainly in basketball, the Indiana-Kentucky All-Star Series. Certainly in basketball, the Indiana Pacers and the Kentucky Colonels. Certainly in basketball, Indiana and the University of Kentucky for years, which is going to reawaken itself as a rivalry in December. And so it's always been somewhat of a friendly, but a rivalry nonetheless. But here is my theory. It is my belief that with the Kentucky Derby, that at the beginning of the Kentucky Derby, when they play my old Kentucky home and they get ready to put the horses at post and get set for the race itself, it is my theory that while that is so special to the people of Kentucky, no one can totally understand or relate to what it means to be a Kentuckian and be able to see the lead up, the build up to, and then the start of the Kentucky Derby. Today is the Kentucky Oaks, which is the day that is kind of the day for locals. But the Derby itself and the pride that must go into the tradition and the heritage for people of Kentucky and what that must mean, I think is one of the most awesome things in sports. And my theory is simply that of the other 49 states, none can completely comprehend what it means to be a Kentuckian in that moment. But the state that would come closest is Indiana. And if there is in two states that are neighbors but rivals and go back and forth about which is the better in different areas, the one thing that is kind of a subtle, unwritten wink from across the room bond and connection between Indiana and Kentucky. And if anybody's listening to me right now who is a native of Kentucky or who has spent a lot of time in Kentucky or who has a love for Kentucky, text me if I'm wrong here. I may be totally off base. I might be romanticizing something that isn't even accurate. But I believe that there is a reciprocal respect and understanding and bond that happens twice a year for those two states. And that is the understanding of it, because we as people who grew up with that same moment of feeling back home again in Indiana and all of the pomp and circumstance that goes into the Indianapolis 500 and the pride of having the sports world get a glimpse into what is an important part of our existence and knowing that other people are enjoying our being, I think that we can relate to with that leads up to the Kentucky Derby more so than the other states. And there is just this, it literally is like a truce. The rivalry has a truce for a total of 40 minutes year long, the 20 minutes leading up to the Derby and the 20 minutes leading up to the Indy 500. And I love it. I'm here. I don't know anything about horse racing. I don't know anything about it. I mean, I do. I know who Dwayne Lucas is. I've been to Claiborne Farms, where Secretariat was sired and where Secretariat's resting place is. I know obviously who, some of the great jockeys are over the course of the years, and I know the history of Triple Crown winners in horses. But in terms of like totally grasping and understanding it, it would be completely disingenuous for me to sit here and say that I'm some expert and like I'm in Bob Baffert's corner of this or that or this or that. But the 151st Kentucky Derby, Eddie Garrison, you will or will not watch the Kentucky Derby?
I always watch the Kentucky Derby, Jakes. What about you?
Totally. Now, I get confused by this every year. Every year I get confused for the Kentucky Derby of now, what time does it start exactly? Because I always think it's going to be like 2 in the afternoon. And seemingly it's always, by the time they get underway, it's like 6 o'clock at night.
6:57.
Now, who is your favorite to win? I've got the field right here and I don't know if I have their odds. See, I don't even have their odds. No, I do have the odds. I always pick based on names.
Oh, yeah, you've got to.
The favorite right now for the Kentucky Derby, the favorite is journalism, right? But isn't journalism a dying breed? You got to be 3 years old in the Kentucky Derby, but I don't know if you know this or not, but this horse journalism looks completely different than it did and is much less trustworthy. You can't trust journalism, the horse, like you could 20 years ago, right? But journalism is the odds-on favorite, 3-1. Now, after that, then you've got Sovereignty, seems to be, again, a theme of the times, and then Sandman at 6-1. Eddie, do you actually play a little bit of the ponies on the Kentucky Derby?
I do not.
How about American Promise? 30-1. Let's go American Promise. Who is the biggest dark horse Well, there's like 5 at 30-1. Usually there's somebody that's like 75-1, like Mind That Bird, and then they always do well. Owen Almighty. I like Owen Almighty. I like A Prayer for Owen Meany, good book. I like Owen Poley, good dude. Owen Almighty, let's go. I'm all in. Luxor Cafe. Luxor used to be a great resort out in Las Vegas. I think it's probably a little bit passé now. But I could roll with that. How about Admire Daytona? Can you Admire Daytona should be scratched. Because I told you, you got the Kentucky Derby, you got the Indy 500. They relate to one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't throw me Daytona coming in here trying to crash the party. We got 2 great races that already have a symbiotic understanding of the culture of one another. I don't need Daytona trying to come in and act like they're a third wheel. They're third wheeling it. Now, Flying Mohawk. I'm down with this. Flying Mohawk. Cool name. Flying Mohawk. Can't you just envision? Wouldn't it be cool to have a poster of Flying Mohawk winning the Kentucky Derby? That's cool. I'm down with it.
Wasn't American Promise in it last year?
No, it can't be.
I could have swore there was a horse with the same name like American Promise.
Well, they have to be 3 years old. And now it's possible American Promise flunked. Did they decide that a year ago the Promise wasn't very good, so they want to bring it back for another year?
Yeah.
Are you trying to turn this into a political show, Eddie Garrison?
No.
Okay.
I am not.
How about East Avenue? I'm down with East Avenue. It just sounds ritzy, doesn't it? Monopoly? It's not really a property on Monopoly, but it sounds like it could be East Avenue. Now, it's going to be awkward if journalism and publisher are side by side because, again, 2 things that are basically
That's
a
right.
dying breed here in 2025, right? I'm excited for the Kentucky Derby is what I'm getting at. I'm very excited for it. We now have a better idea on Sunday what time the Pacers and the Cavaliers are going to get underway, correct?
No. That comes tonight. We find that out tonight.
But we know what will lead to that's what I'm getting at. We have a better understanding because we know it's going to be 6 or 8.
Yeah.
We knew yesterday that it was going to be contingent upon a number of things. We now know exactly what it is that we need to figure out or determine in terms what to look for to find out what time, correct?
Yeah, we knew that yesterday. Just the outcome of tonight's game. If the Warriors win, then Indiana will play at 8 o'clock. If the Rockets win, Indiana will play at 6.
Okay, so if the Warriors win, then it's at what time?
If the Warriors win, they play at 8 o'clock. If the Cavaliers win, or not the Cavaliers, if the Rockets win, they play at 6.
So let me ask you this. We should do a poll on this. Would you rather the Pacers on Sunday play at 6 or 8?
8.
Really?
Yep.
Why? Sun's already set. You can do your activities over the course of the day in case it's nice out. Is that why?
Well, from my perspective as the producer of the Pacers Radio Network, I get a couple extra hours to be at home.
Okay. So you're rooting for 8 o'clock. I think most people, 6 or 8 p.m., I'd like to know what most people favor there. Or is it a draw? I think in today's world although, are the kids doing travel sports still this weekend?
Without question.
So people probably would prefer the 8 o'clock as well, right? Most people don't care about the fact you're going to get paid extra if it's at 8 o'clock. So for themselves, because we care about ourselves, right?
That's right.
So you're rooting for Golden State tonight.
I am indeed.
And that game is in Houston, right?
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. It's in Houston tonight.
Yeah, it's game 7, right?
Yes. Yeah. 6.
Oh, it is 6? Then it's in Golden State. Houston has home court advantage, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at the game 7.
So this is a game 6 between the Warriors and the Rockets. Golden State wins. Pacers play at 8. Fair enough. Okay. Right here, somebody says 6 o'clock. First vote, 6 o'clock. Jake, I want it to be at 6. That way I can sit in a bar and watch the game. Can you not? The bars close at 7?
You can watch it You can watch it at home. It's on TNT. It's not going to be blacked out like it was the last 2 games of the Cleveland. Or not, why do I keep saying Cleveland? The last series against Milwaukee. It'll be on TNT.
Now wait a minute. There's a horse in the Derby that was trained by a fella from Indiana. Is that right?
I don't know.
Chunk of Gold. Ethan West is the trainer.
One of the long shots.
Let's go, chunk of gold. I'm all in now. Ethan West is the trainer. I'm looking at his social media profile. He outkicked his coverage. Let's go. Chunk of gold. There we go. Let's go, Ethan. So, 6 o'clock. Eddie, you're getting outvoted here, man. Everybody wants it to be at 6.
Well, I'm also a night owl, so I like the later start. So,
hey, Jake. This from Eddie's only friend, Alec, that listens to the program.
oh,
I listen to a Louisville radio show every day. Well, what the hell's Alec doing? Why is he listening to a Louisville radio show? Clearly,
it's not during our show.
Clearly, he listens to this one, too. I hope it's between 10 and 12. Otherwise, he should be locked into the fan. For the morning show with Jeff Rickard, James Boyd, and Kevin Bowen taking place between 7 and 10. This program, Querying Company, from 12 to 3. And then, of course, the ride with JMV from 3 until 6. Outside of that, Alec is free to do as he chooses. I listen to a radio show every day. The host went to the 500 a couple of years ago and talked about the respect he has now for the 500 because of the pre-race pageantry and the fact you can bring in your own booze, while at the Derby it costs $80 for a mint julep. Mint julep, if I'm not mistaken, everybody talks about. It's basically sugar water and then some mint booze, right? Or no, it's got something in it and bourbon, sugar water, and then a mint leaf. Isn't that what it is?
Bourbon, sugar, mint, and crushed ice.
Okay. Hey, Jake, I'll be attending a 6 o'clock party and we'll be watching the game. I don't really care what it means for Eddie. Okay.
I don't really care what it means for you.
Okay.
Well, if you're attending a party at 6, what's it matter to you? Right? The game will be on regardless, I hope.
I'm telling you. I think 8 o'clock. I'm kind of with you, Eddie. I think especially if the weather's going to be nice. But this time of year when the weather breaks a little bit, you kind of want to have the day to go out and do things and maybe have a dinner outside, then get back in for 8 o'clock, watch the game over about 10. Pacers are up 1-0. You feel good about it. You go to bed. Let's go start the week, right? Now, the depression that sets in after a game like that, if you lose a late game right before you go to bed on a Sunday night, right?
Well, that's the other part of it, Jake. If it's out of hand early, you can shut it off, go right to bed. If at 6 o'clock and it's out of hand, it's like, it's 8:30. You're like, well, crap. I gotta sit around here and sulk in sadness because the Pacers got crushed for another half hour to an hour, depending on when you go to bed, or in your case, 6 hours.
Hey, Jake, let's go for 6 p.m. Go the IndyCar race at Barber, F1 in Miami, and then right into the Pacers Cavs. Okay, that's cool. Now, this next person simply says they prefer it to be at 8 and then 3 emojis of alcoholic beverages.
Bingo.
I'm confused by why people say that 6 or 8 affects their ability to watch it in a bar.
Look, it's a big day on Sunday. We've got the Fever preseason game right here on the fan. IndyCar Fever got moved to IBC. IndyCar on the fan on Sunday.
Correct.
So you can dabble both, and then the Pacers that Sunday night.
At either 6 or 8, right?
Hopefully
8. We are going to discuss, by the way, the Pacers and Cavs in detail and a couple of things that come into play in talking more about. There are a couple of really interesting intertwines between the way this Cavs team was built and the Pacers themselves. And it's funny how things work in the NBA in terms of the incestuous nature of rosters. The number of players that you look at, and if you go through their transactional history where you're like, wait a minute, that player wouldn't be in the playoffs and a critical player in this series going if it weren't for the team that now he's trying to beat. Or this player is in a different city but is now watching 2 teams that were the main players in their transactional history that facilitated towards them being in another rival within the East. But the effect of their trade is now impacting both rosters of Indiana and Cleveland. There's all kinds of tie-ins that we will get to today as well. The Fishers Freight have a game coming up tomorrow at the Fishers Event Center. It is Star Wars night. Eddie, you a Star Wars guy?
Not really.
You remind me of that R2-D2.
Thank you.
I think if the two of us, if we did a picture for the website of the two of us, and I hate to say this because I find him to be I hate to say this, kind of a brass wuss, but I would be the C-3PO and you would be R2-D2, right? Is that fair?
Sure.
Are you on board with that?
Sure.
I mean, I could have said that you were, an Ewok or something. You're not that. Did you watch any of the Star Wars movies? Clearly not, or else you would be horribly offended by my R2-D2 take.
Some of them.
That C-3PO has kind of a he comes off to me just a little bit. I don't know what it is. Like he can't stand up for himself. I don't want to be that guy. But I'm the taller of the two of us, at least, right?
That is accurate.
Would you say that I'm the more kind of an odd British type sound to myself? A very polite gentleman. I think that's
You're British?
C-3PO is overly polite.
You're British?
I'm not. That's what I'm saying. But I think that if I'm not mistaken, the C-3PO, he has more of just like a, although it's C-3PO. I think I say C-3PO. A lot of people say it's C-3PO, but I'm not a Star Wars guy. But if you are a Star Wars guy, then you're going to love it tomorrow night for indoor football. Fisher's Freight, their head coach, going to join us coming up on the show here today at 1:30.
I thought you were British, Jake.
That's right. I've got an old British guy. People love my old British guy. I've got several British accents I can do. That's the confused, drunken British guy.
Oh.
And then I've got just the, do you like the Beatles? I've got that one too. British people in particular love my British accent. Now, I do, just for example.
Does Donald Davidson approve of these?
Yes. Literally. Is that a fact? Yes. Like
That's actually pretty good.
Just the other day on Saturday, true story. I was driving through Speedway. I was driving across one of the streets in Speedway. I almost said the name of the street, but I was driving in Speedway, and I happened upon Donald Davidson. I hadn't seen him in a while. We visited for quite some time, and 3 different times he said, "Is that a fact? I did not know." And we talked about a lot of different things. And Donald loves my. Matter of fact, he tells me all the time that when I do my British accent, that he feels very at home. That's what he likes about it. And then he asks if I'd like tea and crumpets. People love my British accent. Kids in particular love it. I go out in public, people ask me for that all the time. They do. They want to know why I'm not drinking tea, like your chai tea.
Oh, my chai tea? I haven't had that in a while.
Star Wars night, tomorrow night, Fisher's Freight in action. They are now 2-3. They won their first 2 games. They've lost 3 in a row. They're going to try to snap that skid against the Quad City. I'm not sure the Quad City team, what they go by. I think just goons. The Quad City Steamwheelers. I'm telling you, the indoor football stuff, the Fishers Event Center, if you've not been there, is absolutely awesome. It's awesome. I mean, I've been there now for, I think, 4 times for the Ignite, 2 times for the Fuel. And the football thing is unbelievable because you got guys flipping over the sidelines. I think there was a void in the market for that, truth be told, because I think there were a lot of people that really liked the Indiana Firebirds when they were here in the old Arena League days. This is the Indoor Football League, but very similar. And we're going to talk to their head coach coming up 1:30 today. Kevin Bowen going to join us as well, I should say. Loaded show, but we will start with talking about the Colts, one of their newest members, one of the rookie class. Justin Walley, who is a cornerback out of Minnesota. He was the 80th selection in the NFL draft. He was 80th in the draft. He is first on the show. What I mean by that is he's going to lead us off from a guest standpoint, and he's going to do it on the other side on this Friday mini marathon Kentucky Derby edition of Query and Company here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Friday in Indianapolis, Sunday Pacers Cavs. Again, a recap. If the Golden State Warriors win tonight, then the Pacers play at 8 o'clock on Sunday. If you are somebody who prefers to watch a game while you are sitting down at the dinner table and you're an early eater, then you are rooting for the Houston Rockets tonight, because a Rockets win over Golden State would put the Pacers and Cavaliers game number 1 at 6 p.m. on Sunday. So that's where things stand with that. And as we have talked about a lot yesterday and will do so over the course of today, it's interesting in a 7-game series when you start out as is the opposite of what took place between Indiana and Milwaukee in the first round. Now you are the team that's going in knowing that to win the series, you have to win a road game. I have always felt, maybe it's cliche, but I've always felt like the perfect opportunity for that is game 1. Because game 1 is always kind of the curveball, and you can kind of go in and steal one. Now, surprisingly, last year when the Pacers had to go into, obviously, Milwaukee and get one, it was not game 1. They got blown off the floor in game 1, right? And then they bounced back. But it feels like the perfect opportunity for them would be to get game number 1, and then everything's fair play. If you can come back to Indiana at 1 apiece, you feel really good about it, because obviously you hold serve at home and you advance. That's no easy task against the Cavaliers, though. This is a team that has had multiple 12-game or more win streaks over the course of the season. They got out to – and one of the things that's a real testament, I think, to Cleveland that shows the fortitude of that team, I recall, and yes, there is literally zero comparison between what goes into being an NBA player and like high school basketball. I totally get it, right? It's not even apples and oranges. It's like apples and watermelons. I mean, like one is so much bigger and different than the other. But the only thing that I would say, and I know that it changes in the mind of a professional to an extent, but just for example, I was on a team once that was, and yes, I mean, I'm totally minimizing the fact of that team in comparison to the NBA. But I remember we were 20-0. And once you get into a win streak, eventually you start playing not against the opponent, but rather against the numbers in your head of the pressure of continuing with that. And when Cleveland got off to the start they got off to this year, and the number of games that they won right off the top, then, you know, all of a sudden then you start kind of battling against the pressure that comes with that, and you're kind of scoreboard watching yourself. And for the Cavs to start out at 15-0 and then later and then have, I mean, it becomes tough after a while. And there is a pressure that comes with, man, how long are we going to go here? Because everybody's looking to see with an incredible start like that. Although, interestingly enough, for the Cavaliers, it didn't seem to have the same feel as if it was, say, like the Jordan Bulls when they were going for 70 wins, or Golden State when they've gotten off to unbelievable starts. The Pacers got off to an unbelievable start a handful of years ago where they, you know, I think only lost like 2 of their first 22 games or something like that. But it was a kind of quiet, nationally speaking, 15-0. But I think it shows just the focus of Cleveland at that time, that they were continuing to win games, and that they have done that now on 2 different occasions over the course of the year. Basically, beginning of year, middle of year, and towards end of year, they have had these strides where they are just clicking along, and the wins are just clicking along. At the end, the thing to me that gives me most pause and concern about this series, yes, Darius Garland's a great player. Yes, Jarrett Allen is a very good low-post player. Yes, Evan Mobley is a handful. Yes, Donovan Mitchell, it goes without saying, can get red hot, and you got a tiger by the tail. But what really kind of worries me for this series for Indiana is the following. The Pacers' strength through the course of the season, the thing that has made Indiana different, the thing that has separated the Pacers from other franchises, has been, yes, Halliburton's a great player. Yes, Siakam's a great player. But it's been the contributions of the T.J. McConnell, the Obi Toppin, the Jarris Walker, certainly the Aaron Nesmith. Their depth, 3 through about 8 or 9, separates them from most teams. But if you go back and look at the end of the season when Cleveland had essentially kind of figured everything out, secured where they are, knew they were the number 1 seed, and then they start resting people, and they come in here at the end of the year, and you're literally thinking, and the Pacers are still, I think at that point, playing for that, the 4-5 divider, and you go into the game and Cleveland is bringing in essentially their C-League team because they are resting people at that point, and it felt like huge advantage Pacers, and yet it was not the easiest game. Cleveland hung around. My point being, if Indiana's depth is what has separated them, Cleveland is a team that seemingly is one that can kind of match that. And that, I think, is going to be a challenge for them. But we shall see what happens with that. We had mentioned that the Colts have a new corner. Justin Walley comes by way of the University of Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, and he is the 80th pick in the NFL draft. He is now a member of the Indianapolis Colts, and he joins us on the program. Justin, how are you? Welcome to Indianapolis.
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. Now you are, here's the thing, and this is what I like about you. So you're a Mississippi guy that saw opportunity and obviously ended up playing in Minnesota. So you're a guy that can you're used to the South, you're used to the warm. You go to Minnesota, you weren't afraid to challenge yourself. You go away from home, you play there, and now you are here in the NFL. So let's begin with the journey itself. When did you begin to realize that this was all a possibility for you and that you could be, in fact, somebody who was going to hear their name called, within the first trio of rounds in the NFL?
I think it first started to click for me was probably my freshman year of college, because usually my whole life I played football, kind of just want to go to the next level. But once I got to college and started being able to play as a freshman, I kind of figured out, all right, if I could play as a freshman in college, then the next level is a very much possibility. So I think then was kind of where I started to figure that out.
So when you were going through the process of, and I want to get to some of the stuff that happened to you at Minnesota in a second, but when did you know that the Colts were a possibility? I'm always curious of this. In terms of your workouts and the things heading into the draft itself, was the Colts a franchise, or were the Colts a franchise that you had a lot of conversation with, or were you surprised when you got the phone call?
Yeah, so at the Combine, I had a formal interview with them. So they brought me in, and really I thought they hate me at first, because my meeting with them, it was straight my bad plays on film. They were just getting after me the whole time, and I just tried to do my best to handle it any way I could. But after the meeting,
so wait a minute. So they brought you in for a job interview by asking you and critiquing you of the areas where you had struggled in college?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's kind of cool, right? I mean, hey, the hard part's out of the way now, right?
Yeah, I guess so. When
All
they
right.
told me the plays, I was like, wow, I mean, I guess they don't like me that much if they just show all my bad plays. But after the interview was over, one of the coaches stopped and said, great job, man. You'll probably hear from us soon. So I kind of knew that after that, maybe they kind of either hated me or they liked me. So it wasn't no in between. And so I guess they liked me.
Yeah, so they like you. All right, so we like you. Justin, I'm here to tell you Indianapolis likes you, right? We take care of our people here. We like you. Okay, so did you get a chance to, and I don't even know, and pardon my ignorance here, but like Lou Anarumo, the new defensive coordinator for the Colts, this is obviously his first year here. He was in Cincinnati. Do you get a chance to talk to him yet and get an idea of just what exactly your role is going to be, whether you're going to be like a nickel guy? I mean, how did that all work out, or are you still kind of waiting to feel out what exactly the vision is?
Yeah, I've been in contact with them a lot, and for the most part, the reason why I think they like me the most was I'm very versatile. I can play inside and outside, and they kind of want me to stick to that. They see me being a player who can jump inside and play or can jump outside to play, kind of wherever it's needed. So that's kind of where it's been telling me.
Now, Justin, I'm going to ask you a question here, and don't get mad at me, okay? to the layman term, and by that I mean to the guy or gal that's listening to the show that likes football, enjoys it, but doesn't know the nuances of it. Can you explain the difference? I think when people think cornerback, they think, well, that's the guy that lines across from the wide receiver and runs backward and then makes sure that the receiver doesn't get open. Can you kind of take me through what the different responsibilities are and the difference, in fact, between playing inside and playing outside?
Yeah. So playing outside is a little bit more straightforward. It's kind of most of the time if you're one-on-one, a lot more simple. But kind of you're just responsible for the widest receiver for the most part. Then when you get inside, that's when it's a little bit more different. You have to fit in a run fit sometimes. It's a lot more blitz packages for you. It's a lot more spot drops underneath coverages too. So it's a lot of different things you have to know, and a lot more to know inside than outside.
When you're a corner, by the way, here's a really dumb question that I've never asked somebody that plays corner. When you're lined up, is it your responsibility to try to anticipate what's going to happen based on the formations, or is that more the role of, say, the Mike linebacker, the middle linebacker, who's kind of the unit coach on the field, to then bark out where people are supposed to be? Is it individualized in terms of understanding and anticipating responsibility, or is it more unit-driven?
I think a lot of people think they'll get the connotation that the linebacker is kind of responsible for that, but everybody on the field pretty much watches film. So if you kind of see something that you notice, then anyone can say something and help the defense out. The more guys that know or have something to expect what's coming, the better the defense is as a whole.
Now, watching film growing up, Justin Walley's our guest, the new Colts corner out of the University of Minnesota, the third-round pick for the Colts. When you were a kid growing up and watching film, what player did you most, I guess, kind of emulate? Who did you look up to the most at your position or in any position football-wise?
Yeah, so I grew up as a running back and a safety. So I was a huge Eddie Lacy fan. If that's
really,
Eddie Lacy, yeah, a huge Eddie Lacy fan, and I also like Carl Joseph, and he played safety. Those are probably two names that aren't the biggest names, but that's who I kind of as a kid found myself gravitating towards watching a lot.
Now, Eddie Lacy, when he got to the NFL, just simply became huge, right? Isn't that what happened?
Yeah, he didn't quite pan out.
He's okay. I mean, he had his moments, right? But I think don't pack on the LBs the way Eddie Lacy did, Justin, okay? What about this? So you played running back, but then you play corner. How much did playing offense help you once you began isolating strictly defensively, of understanding the mindset of the way the offense works and the things that you can close in terms of lanes?
Yeah, so being a guy who always played offense my whole life, you kind of learn what offenses try to do. You kind of learn how offenses try to attack certain coverages or defensive formations or personnel. So when you go on the defensive side of the ball and you see these formations offenses are doing, it's kind of easy to pick up the tendencies that they're trying to attack or the things they're trying to attack in your defense. So you kind of prepare in a way that you kind of know what they're going to attack you from or how they're going to attack you.
Okay, speaking of attacking, I want to go back to this when you were at Minnesota. Obviously, probably not somebody you were lining up directly across from, but you had to keep certainly an eye on. Your new teammate in Tyler Warren, who was at Penn State, I think he had an 8-catch, 102-yard game against Minnesota when you guys squared off this season. What's kind of your scouting report on what people should expect from him? And is it kind of weird now to think that you guys are going to be on the same roster?
I don't think it's kind of weird. I think it's kind of cool though, because I always, all of my meetings I went to, all the time the coaches asked who's the best player I faced in college. I always said him. It's kind of funny that we're on the same team now, but he's just a guy that you really can't game plan for because he did so much at Penn State. They put him at quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end. They moved him around a lot, and they got him the ball. And he's a big guy. And he can run, so when the ball's in his hands, he can make something happen. And they did a very good job doing that. And it was kind of hard to stop, you see, by his stats.
Do you guys, and maybe in college it's a little bit different, and you wouldn't be able to answer this yet from an NFL standpoint, but you're going to get to know him because the Colts, I do know, as a rookie class, you guys will do some things together, obviously, in terms of just getting incorporated. But as a young player in particular, how much will you, if at all, talk to offensive players as well, even though you guys are in different rooms, different film rooms, but just to kind of get an idea of the acclimation, how much do you talk to your teammates that are playing on offense to kind of critique, look over, and just help each other out throughout the process of preparing for a game each week?
Yes, I know here at Minnesota, my best friend, my roommate, he's a receiver here. And anytime we were in fall camp or spring ball, we would always talk. I always ask him, like, hey, what were you guys seeing versus this? Why you guys run this concept when we were in this coverage every single time? And we always just pick each other's brains and to get like a better understanding of what the other side was trying to do to the other side. So I think that kind of helped me, and I think I plan on keep doing it at the next level too, or this level.
What did you most learn at Minnesota? What did you most enjoy about Minnesota?
On the field or off the field?
Both. I mean, I'm assuming building a snowman would be one of them, right?
I would say, yeah, off the field, learn how to deal with this cold weather. You know, being a guy from the South.
That's right.
When I first got up here, I didn't have a coat. I just had hoodies and like sweatpants.
Yeah, that didn't last long, right?
Yeah, my first day here, they got me equipped with some big thermal hoodies and trench coats and stuff like that. So I was pretty well suited for the cold now. But for on the field, I would say just the understanding of the game. I know when I first came, my first couple years in college, really, I was out there just playing football without really knowing the down and distance or the situation we're in. But later in my career, I kind of started to play the game the right way, based off situation, based off tendencies. And I think I became a lot better player off that.
You know, Justin, several years ago, Justin Walley is our guest, the new Colts cornerback. Several years ago, I was doing a radio show, and somehow we stumbled upon this funny video of this coach at Western Michigan that was like trying to get the crowd fired up with all kinds of chants and row the boat and all this kind of goofy stuff, and we kind of made fun of it. And then I ended up interviewing the guy, and PJ Fleck, and I said, what's this row the boat stuff? And he told this pretty inspiring story about how he and his wife had lost a child, and the doctor had said, you know, the only choice here is to continue to row the boat and try to move forward. And it really struck me as kind of not necessarily judging somebody till you know the backstory, right? But I also thought in that moment he came off like a very good leader. Now, you played for him, and you know you grew as a football player under him. What sort of things did you learn from PJ Fleck?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I would say I learned from Coach Fleck is the accountability and that no one's bigger than the culture or the program. He did a very good job when I was here of making sure that no matter who you were, how good you were, how many snaps you had, how many awards you gotten, that you're not bigger than the program, and that we had to hold each other accountable no matter who it was and what they did. And I think that really helped the culture to keep everybody on the same page. And I think that's why we kind of won a lot of games at Minnesota. When a lot of teams we played probably had, quote-unquote, better athletes than us, but we played the right way and we played together. And I think that's kind of where our success came from.
Now, what do you know about, or what did you know about the Indianapolis Colts and the team that you're joining?
I knew a little bit. So my cousin is Dante Moncrief, so he played there a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
I didn't realize that's your cousin. I know you have relatives that play football. I did not realize Dante Moncrief's one.
Yeah, he's my cousin.
Really good dude. As a matter of fact, he started a foundation here in town. Really good dude. Like Dante Moncrief a great deal. Ole Miss guy, right?
Yep, Ole Miss.
And so what now, did he like it here? Was he cool about it, Justin? Did he say that you're going to a good spot?
Yeah, he loves it. He gave me a lot of guys he still know that live in Indianapolis that would help me, or I can reach out to if I need anything. So he's a huge fan, and he still supports the Colts.
All right. Well, we appreciate hearing that. He was a really good guy in the community, kind of a quiet dude publicly. I don't know what he's like privately, but certainly a nice guy in Dante Moncrief. You sound like the same yourself, Justin. I want to be the first to welcome you, not the first, but publicly so, to Indianapolis. I know fans are going to be excited to watch you play, and we certainly look forward to perhaps having you on the show again sometime. A lot of fun, and you're going to need those winter coats here too, unfortunately. You get to play indoors, so that's cool, but you'll need the winter coats here too, just so you know.
Yes, sir.
All right, Justin, we appreciate it, man. Good luck to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on.
Justin Walley, the cornerback for the Colts. Real heavy. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back, reset it all. Friday edition, Query & Company on the Fan. By the way, a couple of and thank you to Justin for his time. Certainly appreciated it. Look forward to having him back on because he was a pretty fun interview. Couple of announcements, by the way, that you probably heard about, but I'm going to repeat them regardless, involving the radio station.
Now, what were those announcements, Jake?
Thank you, Eddie.
You're welcome.
On August the 7th, we're going to have a golf outing.
Where?
Also, thank you for asking. The Legends Golf Club, it is the Fan Invitational Golf Outing presented by Franciscan Health. And you know, as a matter of fact, coming up in the 2 o'clock hour, it is a Franciscan Health Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday. And a lot of you, the mini marathon taking place tomorrow. And I'm going to be doing that again. And certainly there was a time where I wondered if I would be able to. And when I had my heart attack, you know, that particular week, I had run, I think, like 24 miles that week, not in one time, over the course of the week. So the point being, I wasn't necessarily conditioned for a heart attack based on that, but there was some genetics in play. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because I think it's a very important, even if you're in the best of shape, you might want to hear about what could happen just in terms of the genetics and how you can find out if you are still at risk of a heart attack, even if you're in the best shape of your life. We'll do that conversation today. And the great folks at Franciscan are what make that all possible. And Franciscan Health is partnering with us for this golf outing on the 7th of August. That's a Thursday at the Legends Golf Club. We're all going to be there. J&V will be there. Kevin Bowen will be there. Myself, Jeff Rickard will be there, all to help out the Franciscan Foundation. So we look forward to that. All of the information can be found on our website. That is, of course, 1075thefan.com, which is now announcement number 2. Eddie, the radio home for the Indiana Fever, correct?
That is correct. Starting on Saturday for the first of 3 preseason games, you will be able to listen to the Indiana Fever. John Nolan will be on the play-by-play. Bria Goss will be the analyst, and yours truly will be the producer of said Indiana Fever broadcast. All games will be aired, for the most part, here on The Fan. I think there may be a couple of exceptions where they may move over to IBC for a game or two, just depending on the Indiana Pacers. But yes, we are now the official home of the Indiana Fever.
Very cool. So we are excited about that. Football, by the way, beyond just the Colts being played right here in town. We'll tell you more about that. Bottom of the hour, one of the newer football coaches in town going to join us. But on the other side, some of the intercross that might surprise you between the Cavs and the Pacers and the rosters thereof. That view next. Pacers Cavs Sunday game number 1. Cleveland's got a really good roster. And one of the guys on their roster that I've always liked is Jared Allen. And Jared Allen.
Are you talking about that guy who played for the Minnesota Vikings?
That's right. And the Kansas City Chiefs, yes. Jarrett Allen.
Oh, Jarrett Allen.
Not to be confused with Jared Allen, right? Who is a Hall of Famer, correct? Isn't Jared Allen in the Hall of Fame now?
I think so.
He is. I
You
believe
might be
he was.
right, yeah.
Did he go in Freeney's class maybe? Right
That
around
sounds
then.
about right.
But Jarrett Allen is a guy that and the reason why I like him, he's a little bit different center than, say, a Miles Turner because he's not as active, but he is a very effective low-post scorer. I believe he led the NBA in field goal percentage this year. When the ball goes into him, good things typically happen for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He began his career with the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, with Brooklyn he did. I forgot about that.
Now, he's in Cleveland because of Indiana. That's kind of the irony here in the fact that the Pacers, once upon a time, had a player on their roster that was very similar right now to Tyrese Halliburton. And by that, I mean a player that once he came to Indiana, his career finally came together. And there was a great relief in Indiana in the fact that this player had, as for a franchise that had been looking for its next face of the franchise marquee player, you had it with Reggie Miller. There were players you thought you had it with. You thought you had it with Jermaine O'Neal, who was a very, very good player. Thought you had it with Paul George, and then he stands up at a softball game and says, this is where I want to be, and then he tells Kevin Pritchard, actually, I kind of lied to everybody, that's not where I want to be. And the Pacers as a franchise were reeling a little bit. I don't mean necessarily in terms of, people were just completely, done with it, but they were back to the drawing board. And then they make the trade for Tyrese Halliburton. But before that, you had Victor Oladipo. And Oladipo was a guy that they thought, in fact, was going to be the next face of the franchise. And then, yes, he got hurt. And there's a lot that goes into it. We don't have to go back and revisit all of it. But I think that Oladipo also started listening to the wrong people and thought he had outgrown Indiana. And they thought he was going to be here for a while. And, then he kind of started sulking and he starts doing music stuff on the side and et cetera, et cetera. So the Pacers find themselves in a position where they're like, okay, now we've got to figure out what we want to do here with Oladipo. And so now listen to this. Eddie, I'm going to have you keep score of this, okay?
Okay.
The Pacers decide that they need to get rid of Victor Oladipo, not get rid of, but they've got to do something to recoup. Victor Oladipo is not only hurt, but he also just wants out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, man, what do you do now? Boy, they're really stuck, and they're going to go with, what's the best thing they can get? And at the time, I thought it looked like a pretty good trade for them because what they ended up getting essentially was Karis LeVert. And they may have saved his life because if you remember, Karis LeVert comes to Indiana, and as is always the case with any new player that is acquired via trade, you go through a physical,
mm-hmm.
and during the physical, they go, wait a minute, something's off here. And they discover, at the fault of no one previously, it being unknown, that Karis LeVert had, and I believe it was kidney. I don't want to be inaccurate medically speaking, but he had a spot that was cancerous, that kidney or liver, I don't remember exactly where, so my apologies, but within the abdomen. They discovered a cancer spot and then immediately took him in to have that removed and allow him to recuperate. So by all account, that's the biggest win in the trade, is the fact that for the health of a young man, that was discovered. But here's how this trade went down. Jarrett Allen is in Brooklyn. He and Taurean Prince, familiar name in the NBA playoffs this year, he and Taurean Prince are sent to the Cleveland Cavaliers, where Jarrett Allen is set to face the Indiana Pacers. along with Rodunas Crooks. Am I correct in saying that name?
I have no idea.
A 2021 first-round pick, a 2022 first-round draft pick that became Terry Eason, a 2023 first-round draft pick, a 2024 first-round draft pick that would become Reed Shepard, a 2025 first-round draft pick, a 2026 first-round draft pick, and a 2027 first-round draft pick. Okay? They sent all of that to the Houston Rockets. The Nets also traded Karis LeVert to the Pacers. The Cavaliers traded Dante Exum and a 2022 first-round pick. Beauchamp was selected to the Houston Rockets. The Cavaliers traded Cash and a 2024 second-round pick, which would become Tristan Newton, to the Pacers. The Pacers then, the Houston Rockets traded James Harden to the Nets. The Rockets traded a 2023 second-round draft pick. Jalen Pickett was later selected to the Pacers. And the Pacers traded Oladipo to the Rockets, along with a bunch of picks.
Yep.
So basically what I'm getting at is here, a bunch of dudes and a bunch of picks were shuttled around for players that at the time you think are just kind of throw-ins or salary cap match. And in reality, it was thought to be the monster Karis LeVert, Victor Oladipo, James Harden trade. And the guy that actually might be as impactful as any of them in all of it is Jarrett Allen, who was part of the trade that was facilitated by Indiana. And now it's a player that they're going to see here coming up in the playoffs and is a really good player.
And then they traded that pick that Jalen Pickett became, Jake. The Pacers did, to the Denver Nuggets. That became a first-round pick in the 2024 draft that the Pacers used on Mojave King.
And don't even get me started on what happened elsewhere in one of those what they got back for. You said they got that. What else did they send with Jalen Pickett? Wasn't that part of like another 10-team deal?
That was a 4-team deal. Yeah, that was a 4-team deal that involved the Lakers and the Thunder.
How do teams keep it all straight? That's what I want to know. It'd be a great question for, say, Chad Buchanan. Like when you go through a deal like that, how do you say? You know, when you start dealing with, and there is a cap, I believe, for how far out you can actually I believe there's isn't it like 7 years? Is it 7 year removed at the NBA, the cap on how far out you can trade a pick? Because can you imagine being the general manager of a team? And you're the general manager of a team, and you come in and they say, oh, by the way, we forgot to tell you. I know it's the year 2030, but we traded your first-round pick that you were going to use this year as part of a 14-team deal or a 14-player, 4-team deal that involved Jalen Pickett 7 years ago. What?
I'm sure that's more of the league office than anything else.
For sure, but you still need to keep track. You got to know, right? I want to know when I'm moving into a house whether or not everybody forgot to tell me that the shed outside actually goes away in a year.
I wonder if it's like one of these fantasy football apps, where you play in a dynasty league and you can trade picks and whatnot. If there's like some sort of website or system that NBA, NFL teams have that just keep track of all of it for them.
It's okay. For example, the pick that we just mentioned, okay, Jalen Pickett, who was drafted by the Pacers in the second round 2 years ago. Right on that, the next day, a 4-team trade. The Pacers, along with Julian Strawther, sent Pickett to the Nuggets. The Nuggets traded Maxwell Lewis to the Lakers. The Nuggets traded a 2029 first-round pick to the Thunder. The Lakers traded King, who you just mentioned, to the Pacers. The Oklahoma City traded Hunter Tyson and a 2024 second-round pick, which would become Kevin McCullough Jr., to the Nuggets. And the Oklahoma City Thunder traded a 2024 first-round pick, Isaiah Collier is who it would become, and a 2024 first-round draft pick to the Pacers. The Pacers didn't have Isaiah Collier, did they?
No.
2024 second-round pick as its least favorable of Minnesota and Charlotte 2029 protected first-round pick is the Denver 2024 top 4 protected pick, and the least favorable of Oklahoma City, the Clippers, and Houston, and a top 10 protected pick if Utah owns it but does not convey. Now, who in the hell keeps track of that? Is there, honestly, who's the guy walking around in the NBA league office that has to keep track of that.
Imagine just being one of the GMs negotiating that deal.
This is like watching the third season of Ozark after not having seen the first two. You literally are sitting there going, who is this guy? Where'd this guy come from?
Woke up in a great mood. Don't know what the hell happened.
I mean, honestly, I guess that's the way it works, right? But Jared Allen is going to be, I think, he's a really good player for Cleveland. And what he does is, because of the fact that he plays bigger than he is, but he mans that low post area, which allows for Mobley, for example, to not have to play on the inside. That's the beauty of Miles Turner. Miles Turner is a big, but he can pull away a defense by the fact that you've got to watch him and pay attention to him as he works around in the three-point circle. And Miles Turner is very, very good. Turner is really good at this. Do you ever see, do we have the bad analogy sounder by any chance, Eddie? Thank you, because there's one coming. Thank you. I don't know anybody that's ever played this game that I'm about to mention, but if you ever go to an old elementary school playground, or just in a playground in general, if you think back to when you were in elementary school, they have this, somebody tell me what this is called. It's probably a 10-foot high pole, and at the top of it, it has an open container that has a spout on all four sides.
And it's different points on each one of those things?
Yeah, and so I guess that I've never played this. I'm assuming that what it is you throw the ball into it, and then it just spits it out one of the four, and you've got to be standing there to catch it when it comes out. What's the fun of this game?
I guess it's like you're supposed to catch the ball, and whoever catches the ball gets that many points.
Is that what it is?
That's my assumption.
Okay, so they're always like hanging out by the tetherball machines, which is another game that, other than Napoleon Dynamite, I have no idea who plays it. But Miles Turner is kind of like that game. When the Pacers' offense starts to break down, their offensive set, and sure, Rick Carlisle or Lloyd Pierce or Jenny Boychuk, they're probably, if they were listening, they were like, this guy, what is he talking about? He's making this not at all what he's doing. Maybe it's by design. But when I watch their offense as they go through kind of a weave around the three-point circle, if they go down with the basketball, whether it be McConnell or Halliburton or any of them, if they get down into the interior of the set and a defense collapses and they're a little bit in trouble, there are two ways to rotate the basketball. The first is to obviously make a cross-court pass or just simply rotate it or move the ball around the perimeter and get it to the other side. And the other is, a lot of times, Miles Turner will flash high into, around the free throw line, and the ball goes to him, and he then will turn, and everything kind of resets, and then he looks to see where it needs to go, goes to that player that's open, and then he slides back down, and the whole thing resets itself. That's really as much his role offensively is kind of the reset guy. I think Miles Turner and his ability to handle and facilitate the basketball at the top of the key is one of the most underappreciated aspects of what he brings to the Pacers. Because when you watch it, oftentimes Turner touches the ball one of two times: at the very beginning of a possession with a top-of-the-key three, or at the decline of a possession where then his job is to either find the bailout guy open shot or himself pull up and shoot it. But when he's doing that, it's drawing away whoever the low-post player is for the opposition. What Cleveland does really well, I think, is Jarrett Allen is a guy that he is not a free-roaming guy like that. Mobley is. And Allen allows and facilitates for that to happen. Now, Eddie, you've got that look on your face like you're about to say something.
I am about to educate you, Jake.
A borderline smirk, okay?
I'm about to educate you. So that game you referenced on the playground?
Can I describe the game and then see if I can come up with a name?
Okay, so let's see. I'm going to describe what it is. It's a relatively large fiberglass or plastic funnel. It's roughly 5 feet in diameter with a 50-degree pitch that is placed atop a post.
Okay.
The X is on a funnel or multiple 1-foot diameter holes or tubes,
Okay.
projected parallel to the ground and spaced equally around the bottom.
Okay.
Play consists of tossing a ball, such as a basketball or a small medicine ball, into the mouth of the funnel and waiting for it to exit through one of the holes. Each hole is marked with a point value, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 points, whatever the case may be. The ball usually rolls around inside the funnel for a short time, making the outcome of the shot nearly random, and shots which exit through the desired hole are unlikely. There is no formal score to which games are played, and games can be played with high score winner or low score winner. Both team and every player for themselves games are commonplace. There are 4 players that can play in the circle and up to 12 players that wait in line.
Okay. No, hold on. So you don't have a designated side? Is your job just to like shove people out of the way and get to where the ball's coming out? Is that what we're talking about here?
I don't know. I think the maybe it is you shoot the ball through like it, and then
Now,
that's how many points you get.
Don't tell me the name because I'm going to tell you based on the evidence you've given me. Do we have a name for? Is there a name for the game?
Yes.
Okay, I know exactly what it's called. You ready?
Okay.
Lame-o ball.
No.
Is that right? It's got to have something to do with like random, right?
No, it's 2 words.
Okay, what is it?
It's called funnel ball.
No. There's no way it's called funnel ball.
Yeah.
No.
Funnel ball. Yes.
How long has this been around? Does it say when it started? Because it seems to me like it's something you see from like a playground from the 1950s.
1972.
Well, that's the year I was born. That should be called Jake ball. Right?
That's what you should say
You
now.
know what? You know what? This
introduce
is
yourself.
perfect. This is perfect. What we know is this. What we know is that things from 1972 are completely random, and you never know where they're going to go. Right?
Yeah. But that's what you should say now whenever you meet somebody new. Like, oh, when's your birthday? Oh, I was born in the year that the funnel ball was invented.
Well, no. First off, there's no way it's called funnel ball.
Yes.
Right? It's got to have some other name than
Funnel
that.
ball? That's what it's
I'd
called.
like to know this. I'd like to know if anybody. I'd like to hear from anybody who's ever actually played funnel ball. I'm convinced these funnel ball things, right? They're on every playground. They've never been used ever. I've never seen anybody that's played this. I've seen it on playgrounds. I've never seen it being used ever. Have you ever? You've seen it, right?
Yes.
Have you ever actually seen anybody playing it?
I have. Growing up, yes.
No way.
The kids that were unathletic typically played over there.
Oh, really?
And the athletic ones are actually playing on the actual hoops.
Now, hold on. Now you're typecasting?
No. I'm just
Now,
telling you how it is.
I mean,
or how it was.
When I look at you, I don't necessarily see Adonis or Carl Lewis here. I mean, what like...
Back in my prime, I was in much better shape.
Okay, your prime. How old are you again? You're how old?
26.
Okay, I'd like to know this, please, if you could. What if you're 26 and you're out of your prime? What's it looking like from here? What are we doing? You're 26 and in your prime. What? What are we talking about? What was your prime when you were 12?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in other words, you are the only human being on planet Earth whose prime was prepubescent.
Yes.
Okay, you're the P cubed, the prepubescent prime Eddie.
That's
okay.
right. That's right.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Listen, you got to trade this guy. Why? Well, he's 26. I mean, he's really he's hit the exterior here. I mean, this guy's rounding turn 4 at 26 years old. I mean, I got news for you, Eddie. Once you start 30, you're still kind of hanging on. You hit about 35, you're not doing too bad. 40, the metabolism train starts slowing down like no tomorrow. 45, there's literally brake dust going on. And by the time you get to 50, the hair on your head's moving south, and it's usually going down the back of your neck and down your back, okay? Just so you know. So
Is that why you have one of those fancy back shaver things?
Yes,
that you were telling
of
me
course.
About?
Of course. It's part of my routine. But at least in my prime.
Now, how old were you in your prime?
51. 51. Look, I stand before you right now, and I'm not holding up the label because I don't want to give away, any sort of free advertising. Right here. What am I doing? What am I doing right here?
It looks like you're drinking some electrolyte beverage.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. What I'm doing is hydrating. You know why? Because tomorrow, 15th mini marathon, buddy. 52 years old. How's that for prime? Yeah, I got a little extra jiggle. I'm not going to lie about it, right? Knees a little bit sore and trying to stave off a bout of gout. But that's okay. That's okay. Prime 52, baby. I know there's a great restaurant downtown. I love it. Right before Pacer games, great place to go. Prime 47
Where
tomorrow.
you did your remote?
What you're going to see on display, Prime 52, right? Double the age of you exiting your prime at the age of 26. We're going to talk a little football. We're going to do it next. Tomorrow night at the Fishers Event Center for the Fishers Freight and their inaugural season. They are taking on the Goons from Quad City. That's not actually their name, but that's what they are.
All these players in their prime, Jake.
That's right. Not like you who peaked in middle school. Dixie Wooten is the head coach and general manager, for that matter, of the Fishers Freight and joins us on the program now. Well, here's the thing. I was going to say coach, but I guess I could also say boss because you wear both hats. So does this make you you're not Darth Vader, right, tomorrow night for Star Wars night? You're Luke Skywalker, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Luke Skywalker. That's exactly who I am.
Okay. All right. Coach, welcome to certainly welcome to Indianapolis as well, because I know obviously this is the first year for the Fishers Freight. I've had several friends that have already gone out. The Fishers Event Center itself it's just an unbelievable venue.
Yeah.
But people love the action of the football in general. So let's begin with that. You have had a career that's taken you to Iowa. You've been in Arizona, I believe, the Bay Area, and now Fishers.
Yeah.
What is it about this particular venture that was appealing to you?
Just coming here, just understanding the Indiana love for sports, but also, with Jim and Sean, how they run the Indy Fuel, to me it was a no-brainer to coach here. And then, when I got here and saw my first game here, it was unbelievable, man. The fans came out, they understood football to the fullest. So, in the indoor game, you got to try to help your fans out, but not here. They was live in the building. They was loud. They was excited. So, to me, this is the best job in the IFL.
What is football's football to a great extent, right? But then the indoor league, it's different because you've got a shorter field. It's pretty high flying. I mean, that's the best way that I would describe it. But in terms of the players that you're looking for versus players that are going into, say, the NFL or like big-time Division I players, you're looking for what kind of an athlete?
So, we kind of get some of the same guys. We got a few guys, like, for example, my offensive line, we got LaQuinston Sharp. He went to Mississippi State, and he played for the Green Bay Packers. So it's a lot of guys that, that came to the league, but most of our guys come from Division III and Division II. Some of the guys that get looked over, they need that extra chance, they'll come to us. We'll, get everything going for them and try to get them a shot in the league.
By the way, I noticed here that one of the teams that you were the coach of a couple of years ago is the Tucson Sugar Skulls. Now, what in the world is a Sugar Skull? Can you explain?
So in Tucson, they celebrated the dead. So basically, the Sugar Skull is a dead person that came back to life. So
okay.
It's crazy.
This is making perfect sense why you left to go to the Bay Area Panthers, right?
Exactly.
Okay, well, fair enough. So here's the thing. Now, the Tucson Sugar Skulls, are they still around?
Yeah, they still around, still in Tucson. Yeah, they still playing.
I didn't know because I was looking at your guys' schedule. I didn't see them on the schedule this year. I didn't know if actually like the franchise was dead and they're still celebrating them for that reason. But you guys now, let's get to just the kind of the playing standpoint, if you will. You got out to a good start, 1-2. You've lost 3 in a row. But the thing about it is, it seems, Coach, like in this particular sport, the scoring can come so quickly that you're never totally out of a game, and that's why it's so fun to be there. Fair assessment?
Absolutely. Like the game we lost last week, we was down at 21 at one time, and all of a sudden, we went from 21. We did a couple of onside kicks and got a turnover. Next thing you know, we trying to drive, and we only down by 6 points. So in this game, I just saw teams down by 28. And was able to win games. So that's the fun part. Like, there's no leave it in the third quarter when the team is down because you can come back at any time.
Now, Coach, you sound, just out of curiosity, are you a coffee drinker?
No, I'm just I call myself two people. And when I'm Coach Wooten, I'm this intense guy. But when I'm off the field, I'm excited by life and I'm relaxed type of guy. So what you hear now is Dixie.
Yeah. See, here's the thing though. And I like it because you sound like a high-energy guy. Like, you're a kind of guy I'd want to hang out with. You know what I mean? Like, you just sound like a guy we could just get in a car and do a lap around 465, and it'd be nonstop fun.
Absolutely. That's me. That's me to a T.
I like that. Okay, so I want to get to know you a little bit, right? So, we can talk Coach Wooten, but let's talk Dixie for a second, okay? Gotcha. You grew up where and you fell in love with football how?
I grew up in Houston, Texas. So, my dad, my uncles, everything was around football. So in Texas, once you're born and you get 3 years old, you get baptized and get took to a football field. So I've been loving football since watching my dad coaching since I was 3 years old.
3 years old to go to a football field in Texas is a late start, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You got you got to be going when you're born. For example, like I had my son in high school. As soon as he was born, like he's on my staff now. As soon as he was born, he was at one of my football games at like 3 months old.
Yeah, that's Texas for sure.
Yes,
who did
absolutely.
So growing up, who did you emulate? Like, who were your favorite players when you were growing up?
I was a Warren Moon guy. Just seeing he was the underdog, had to go to Canada, and I was able to see him in person for the Houston Oilers.
Oh, of course,
so,
yeah.
You look how he carried himself, but also you saw him play, every day, and you saw him throwing the football. You saw him working. So, my guy was Warren Moon.
So when Frank Reich led the largest comeback in NFL playoff history for the Buffalo Bills, and later, of course, went on to coach here in Indianapolis, and defeated the Oilers that I think were up 38-3. You just got up off the floor from that probably like 6 months ago, right?
Absolutely. That was by far the worst situation we ever been through in Houston. So, we knew for a fact we was going to the next round. And then you go to the kitchen, you get something to eat, and you laugh and joke. Next thing you know, we see Frank Wright celebrating a win. And that was tough.
Hey, so how much of, things like that, I mean, we joke about it now, right?
Yeah.
But when you are a coach, if you have a team, like, for example, right now where you're trying to, kind of lift things up a little bit. Tomorrow night, Star Wars night, Quad City's going to be there. It's a great venue. What do you do to kind of lift your team and keep things, as you will, for the Fisher's Freight? How do you keep the train on the tracks?
So what you do is that when it's football, you keep trying to motivate these guys to be successful, because at the end of the day, they're in the IFL to try to get, an opportunity to go to the next level. But, when we off the field, that's when you get that bond of, okay, fellas, I show you Coach Wooten every day, so let's do this. Let's have cookouts like once or twice during the week, so we can all sit down and understand each other as men. Once you start understanding each other as men, now when you come to work, you understand the person that you're working with, and now you get a good understanding of, what push each other to be successful. So now, that's what it's about. At the end of the day, football is going to be football, but when you start learning each other more as men, that's when football kind of picks up.
When you look at the indoor league and the fact that you're playing on, a condensed field, if you will, Dixie Wooten is our guest, the head coach of the Fisher's Freight. Tomorrow night, Fisher's Event Center, Star Wars night against Quad City. When you look at that smaller condensed field, is that a tougher acclimation towards running an offense on it, or is it a tougher acclimation towards being a defense and kind of always being on your heels?
So it go both ways. So if you say you're at the 5 coming out, it's hard on the defense, because now you got the field behind you. Guys coming in high motion, you got a lot of room to work. But when you get inside the red zone, probably like the 10 yards going in the end zone, now it gets harder on the offense, because now you don't have a lot of room to work. So, most offenses, they try to score when they have all the field, because when they know they get in the red zone, it's pretty tough.
And the walls on the sideline there, I mean, you guys are doing your best to keep the action limited within the field there, but I mean, it's kind of flying all over the place, isn't it?
Oh yeah, when you're a fan, you can get guys fly over in your lap. You be having a beer and some nachos. Next thing you know, you got a player in your lap. So you got to be paying attention, because it is high flying big time.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're an Oilers fan. You go get something to eat and you come back and the Bills have won the game. You're a Freight fan. You got food and somebody's in your lap, right?
Exactly. Go both ways.
Hey, lastly, Coach, tell me what you like about, because we're thrilled to have you. We're thrilled to have you here in town. Tell me what you like so far just about Central Indiana.
Man, now since the weather is getting warmer, golf. Like, I'm a golf player, so getting out there playing a little golf, that's fun. But also the people too. The people are intense when it comes to sports. like some of the fans, they want to know about their team. They want to know about players. They want to know about everything. They want to know about scheme. So, just the outdoor life and the people, I feel like is great for me up in Indiana.
By the way, August 7th is our station golf outing at Legends Golf Club, all to help out Franciscan Health and their foundation, Coach. We'll ink you in for 18. How's that?
Absolutely. Yeah, hey, mark us in there. We'll be there.
I appreciate it. Tomorrow night, again, Saturday night, tomorrow night at the Fishers Event Center. Fabulous venue. If you haven't been to the center itself, tickets are available right now. You can find on the website for the Fishers Freight. And again, just $24 to get in the door. Bargain at twice the price because it's nonstop action. Coach, I appreciate the time. Welcome to Indy. We look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys for having me.
Great stuff. FishersFreightFootball.com, by the way, is the website. Eddie, have you watched any of it? I'm telling you, he's right. Guys are flipping over.
I know.
Knocking.
I've seen some, and I'm like, holy Toledo. I'm glad I'm not in the front row there.
They might have a team, the Toledo Holy. What do you think of the Sugar Skulls?
I was like, what in the world? I still think I'd rather be a Freight.
Yeah, the Freight's cool. They got a cool logo. I'm telling you that if you go up to the Fishers Event Center, between the Fuel, the Ignite, and the Freight, they got a great gift store in there with all kinds of stuff. Cool stuff, man. And great food up there. It's a nice venue. Very nice venue.
If I had a bigger running back, and it's like he's like a freight train coming downhill.
That's exactly right. That's why they're called the Freight, I would assume, right?
That would be my assumption.
All right, big news that happened in the world of basketball just before we went to the show today, and it does have Indiana implication. I'll tell you what it is next. Couple of Indiana connections to big stories in the news today. Get to that in just a second. Wanted to point this out, and thank you for pointing it out to Brian. Brian, sugar skulls are part of the Mexican Day of the Dead. It's ancestor worship, basically Catholicism mixed with Mesoamerican religion. Says, I got interested in it after watching Pixar's Coco. Okay. I mean, I had never heard sugar skulls. I'm like, wait a minute, what? So that was good insight there. Appreciate it, Brian.
A lot of educating going on during
That's right.
the program today,
well,
Jake.
several people have claimed that funnel ball is something that they're familiar with. I don't know where these people are hanging out. For example, Jake, funnel ball is my jam. Get me on the funnel ball court and I'm trouble. Last week messed around and got a 888. Okay. Fair enough. So you just throw this ball up into this thing and then you see where it comes out. So you're running around the circle, is that right?
I guess. It depends on how many people you're playing with.
Are there ever kids that just go by themselves? If you're running around in the circle trying to grab the ball, depending on which side it comes out, then you can claim all you want, Eddie, that's where the non-athletic kids are. They're actually probably looking at you as the non-mobile fat kid over there, right? Not playing funnel ball. You know what I mean? It's all relative.
It is all relative,
Yeah.
I suppose.
So you ought to just, pipe down over there.
Oh, okay, Dad. Okay.
For those just joining us.
Okay, Dad. Okay, Dad.
We were talking about the funnel ball, and Eddie earlier said that he didn't play it because that was where the non-athletic kids were. Then later in the same conversation, he mentioned that back in his prime, although he is 26. So Eddie apparently is Kelly Leak. That's what we know.
That's right.
Eddie's the guy that was showing up at Little League Baseball on his Kawasaki motorbike smoking lung darts. Okay. Is that how it went?
That's right. That sounds about right.
Now, is this a picture of you that you just sent of you in the batter's box?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is me.
You were number 12, huh?
That's what I was initially, yeah. And then I changed to 21 eventually.
That bat looks a little heavy for you that you're trying to lift.
Oh, thanks.
Just before we came on the show today, it was reported that the San Antonio Spurs and Indiana native Gregg Popovich will no longer be the head coach of the Spurs. He had suffered a mild stroke in November. He has had a number of health ailments. Popovich, at 76 years old, will now move into the front office for the San Antonio Spurs on a permanent basis. He began as an assistant coach under former coach Larry Brown, former Pacer coach, I should say, Larry Brown, back in 1988. He was in that role for a number of years before becoming the head coach and becoming essentially a legend. 1,422 regular season victories, 5 NBA titles, 3-time NBA Coach of the Year award winner, and he is one of just 5 coaches to have won at least 5 titles. Phil Jackson, of course, leads everybody with 11. But a tremendous coach, a tremendous, one would assume, evaluator of talent. If you look at the players that San Antonio has gathered over the years, oftentimes in, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, players as such. So Gregg Popovich stepping aside now permanently as a head coach, or at least presumably permanently at the age of 76, and one would assume health-related as well. Had another medical incident on April the 15th at a San Antonio restaurant and was hospitalized from that situation. So
soon to be Cooper Flagg too, right?
That's entirely possible. Mitch Johnson will take over as the head coach, by the way. Also with the Kentucky Derby. We're talking about horses in Kentucky Derby. Now, Lindsay Monroe, who we know is a fan of the radio station, or I should say a friend of the radio station, and is on with John a lot, she actually pointed out, now I told you there was, in terms of the Derby horses and the odds for the Derby, I love the Kentucky Derby. I don't know anything about, figuring out this horse is good on dirt and this horse is good on, mud, and, this horse is good if it starts from the outside. I don't know any of that stuff. Totally naive to all of it. But I go by the names. I go by who has cool names. Okay? And I did not know this, but one of the racehorses that is entered in this year's Derby is trained by Ethan West. And Ethan West is from the same high school as Lindsay Monroe. I believe, is it Cambridge City, Lincoln? I've got to look at her high school. She's going to get mad if I got that wrong, but I know it's in that area of the state. Cambridge City. Yeah, Lincoln High School in Cambridge City. 300 students in the total school. She's a fellow graduate with Ethan West. Well, we got to get this guy on the show. Or John will get him on, one of the two. But he is the trainer for Chunk of Gold. So I'm all in. Chunk of Gold. There we go. 30-1 odds. Style is a closer. The Mariano Rivera of the Derby.
You know, Jake, however much money you put down on Chunk of Gold, you can end up with the Chunk of Gold.
That's correct. Now, here's the thing. Here's the style of runners. Now, you tell me which you'd rather be. Okay, now I know which one of these you're going to be. Do you have the ding and buzzer sound?
I do.
Okay. We're going to determine which style of runner you would be, Eddie. Now, there are a couple of them here. I'll let you know when we get to the last. A pace setter. Now, I don't see you as a pace setter, right?
So is this
Yes, you're not a pace setter.
Sorry.
No, God!
That's more like it.
No,
Okay.
God, please,
Now,
no!
one
no!
would assume that you could be this, and that is a mid-pack. But I don't think you're a mid-pack either. So you're not a mid-pack. Now, a closer would be one that has a strong burst finish at the end, like all of a sudden comes out of nowhere. Sam Hornets Jr. in 06. But I don't know necessarily that you consider yourself a closer, right? What are you, 50-50?
50-50, yeah.
Okay. Well, I believe that you're the following.
Oh, boy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy.
I think you're the one that, and let me give you a couple of the racehorses here. I don't know how to pronounce one of these racehorse names.
I don't either.
Neokoi? Am I saying, if I'm mispronouncing, then everybody feel free to make fun of me. That's fine. That's one. There is another that is listed as this style of horse. Beza? I think you're one of these two, Eddie. Those are listed as stalker.
What?
I
am not a stalker.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not.
I am not a stalker.
You've got yourself a lovely long-term girlfriend. How did you land her?
We were in college together, Jake.
Okay. Were you persistent?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I got news for you. You weren't necessarily a pace setter with it, right? You weren't just bursting onto the scene. Well, you might have been a closer, actually, now that I mention it.
Uh-huh.
Now that I think of it. Maybe you were more of a closer. Myself, obviously, goes without saying, a pace setter. Citizen Bowl, a pace setter.
Of course.
American Promise, a pace setter. East Avenue. I'm all in on East Avenue.
So is Tony.
What's that?
So is Tony.
Tony.
East. Oh, come
Nice.
on.
Nice.
Can't believe that went right over your
I
head.
did. Sorry about that. So East Avenue. And then Flying Mohawk. Flying Mohawk's a closer. So don't count him out at 30-1. Dwayne Lucas has American Promise. Usually Dwayne Lucas is pretty reliable. But I do love the Derby, and I mentioned earlier that I think you can have an appreciation for the Derby if you're from Indianapolis, and I think people from Louisville or Kentucky in general have an appreciation for the 500 just because of the reciprocal history and tradition of both. I just think that the 20 minutes leading up to the start of the Indy 500 and the 20 minutes leading up to the start of the Kentucky Derby, people that have a great connection to both events can certainly respect for the other, what that moment means to them. This from Alec, Eddie's only friend. I'm friends with Eddie because he basically stalked me through college until I finally agreed to be his buddy.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. See? We have a fan golf outing that we have mentioned on August the 7th. The best golfer amongst the group, and I realize that that's during Colts training camp, so there may be a lot going on that particular day, but Kevin Bowen is the best golfer among all of us, and he's going to join us on the other side. I was listening to the morning show. I do most mornings, but I was listening and they were discussing the situation with Tyrese Halliburton's father, and I heard both James Boyd and Kevin Bowen say, okay, I mean, I guess we'll have to react to this, but then at that point that story's done and we move on to the Cleveland series. Very fair statement, but then, of course, that changed yesterday with the news that John Halliburton will not, for, quote, the foreseeable future, be at Pacer games home or away. I do think that was a league-initiated decision and conversation. I think probably the league, in looking into it, may have discovered that the situation with Giannis, while unique because it was a star player, the situation of Tyrese Halliburton's father, while never necessarily maliciously, might not have been an isolated incident. And so, therefore, I think they just felt it was time, along with the Pacers, to say, let's just kind of take a timeout here. And that's where things stand. So, with that said, we don't have to ask Kevin about it because, that now you move on to Cleveland. But we do move on to Kevin Bowen here on the show. You hear him each and every morning on the Fan Morning Show from 7 until 10 o'clock in the morning. And I will get to the Pacers in a second, Kevin. But let's begin with the Colts, actually. We've talked about it, the Tyler Warren selection, it goes without saying. And I don't know if you and I have gone over this, so my apologies if we have. But one of the things that I think is going to be interesting if you now – a chicken and egg question for you, Kevin, and that is, did they get a young, accurate tight end because they feel that's the missing piece towards getting the Anthony Richardson riddle solved, or did they go out now and say we need to get a Daniel Jones in here to get the tight end riddle solved? I think you had made mention of the fact that, it wasn't like the tight end room was one that you thought was getting a lot of accurate passes no matter who was throwing it to them a year ago. How do you kind of overlook that entire situation?
Yeah, I just think it was a bad position group when it came to catching the football, no matter who was playing quarterback, and therefore you needed to add to that position. And then when you look at it, I mean, Warren had one of the greatest college football seasons we've ever seen from a tight end. So, it's not, I don't look at it as like a reach or anything like that. I mean, you consider the skill talent in this year's draft class, particularly at pass catchers, you didn't have a ton of them go, super early compared to last year. So I think it's kind of one of those rare times where, maybe the value met. I think you laid it out pretty good last Friday about, the best player on the board also met position of need. And I think Warren also showed at Penn State he's more than just a tight end. I mean, I think one of the more impressive stats to him was the guy averaged 8 yards per carry. I mean, that's eye-popping to me. It's not like he's just this, tush-push, brotherly shove quarterback where, boom, he gets, 2 yards, Jacoby Brissetting it on a QB sneak. No. He can actually create some plays for you in that part of the game as well.
Kevin, one of the real signs of a complete roster is when you start drafting players that are like special teams and complementary pieces versus you've got to go 5 rounds deep, and you're still getting starters because your roster is depleted. This roster class to you would fall into which kind of category?
Yeah, I would say it's a roster that I still have some question marks, like just at those premium spots. I mean, quarterbacks, is obvious. If you go to wide receiver, I think the floor of the group is a little bit better. If you probably want to nitpick it, you could say that, and I guess it would be an accurate nitpick, they still lack that alpha. Like, I don't think defensive coordinators lose sleep over the Colts wideout, and number one wideout that would be. I think they got a really good left tackle. I think that was a great draft pick by Chris Ballard and Bernard Ryman in round 3, now, almost, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago. Defensively, though, who is that edge rusher, and is Travaris Ward, going to be a really rare corner for this team that not only is a one-year answer but could be a multiple-year answer? I think this team has struggled to find that outside. Kenny Moore's kind of been that slot guy. An edge rusher, seemingly they've swung routinely, and I would say nothing has been close to getting to the fence. Even if you want to continue the baseball analogy, they've maybe hit some singles, an occasional double, and several strikeouts along the way. And again, nothing that you would want considering some of the investments they've made there. So, yeah, I think that's something like it's separated Houston, for example, over the past couple of years. Maybe the Colts have had a deeper roster, but Houston has been better at those premiums. I think at the end of the day, that's why they've won the division each of the last 2 years.
By the way, Kevin, are you doing the mini tomorrow?
No many. No. You, I assume?
Well, yeah, here's the thing. It's supposed to isn't it supposed to be like 55 and raining?
I think, yes, temperature-wise, I thought like upper 50s, but I didn't. Is there rain? I thought maybe the chances had.
Here's where I get thrown off. Okay, this is my beef. You'll look at a forecast, on your phone, and it'll say 100% chance of rain for the day. And then you look at it, and it's because it's supposed to rain from midnight to 12:45 a.m. And you're like, okay, technically that's Saturday, but is it? You know what I mean? So I don't know when. It is definitely supposed to rain tomorrow, but I don't know what time it's supposed to rain. If the temperature's in the 50s, it's going to be perfect. But
yeah, I would think so. I was listening to a podcast. Shout out to Nate Spagel, does an unbelievable job, and honestly, you would love it if you don't already know his work of really just kind of forecasting, or I should say foreshadowing maybe the state of Indiana and everything that, kind of the hidden gems around the state. And he had the CEO of the 500 Festival on, and they were talking about the history of the Mini. And I want to say this is the 49th year, if that sounds right.
That sounds right.
Mini. There are 6 people that have run every single mini marathon.
Yeah, that's impressive. And at this point, you got to just keep holding out and doing it until the other 5 can't do it anymore, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't want to, promote. I don't want to promote like Nancy Kerrigan, moments here that
I mean,
at the start finish
line. But
I
mean, doesn't a little bit of competitive juice kick in where you're like, well, that's cool. I mean, we'll do the photo and everything, but these 5 suck, right?
Yeah, all of a sudden you get a donut at the Yard of Bricks and someone just jumps out of nowhere and slashes you in the knee here.
Yeah. Now, at one time, have you ever done it, Kevin?
No.
Okay.
No, I have not.
In the early years of the Mini, I mean, I say the early, for many, many years of the Mini, it ended at the Speedway. And
sure.
And now it's miles, basically 6.5 to 9 are the Speedway. And I think it psychologically messed with people because when you get to the track, you think like, oh, it's a quick lap and we're good. Well, it's a lot more than that. You know what I mean? I mean, you and I know because we've been there a gabillion times, so we know how big it is. But I think it's a psychological test for people is what I'm getting at. But we'll see.
My dad,
what's that?
Yeah, I was going to say, my dad ran for years, and him and his brother-in-law, my uncle, would, kind of run together. I think my uncle was probably the better runner if they had to honestly talk about it. But I remember their stories about, certainly what both the straightaways felt like during the track. They also tell a great story about my Aunt Kathy taught at an IPS school along the course, and the school, the kids would come out and they would clap, because if I'm not mistaken, at one point, didn't they have that on a Friday?
That is correct. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and so the kids would clap, and they always were very confused at how Aunt Kathy had 2 husbands. They were very confused by my dad and my uncle both running. So yeah, that's always a great memory.
Well, it was always weird as a kid to see your teacher like any of their life in the wild. You know what I mean? It was like, whoa, wait a minute, really? Like you go to the grocery store?
Scariest thought you could have as a child.
Yeah,
totally.
For sure. All right, let's switch to the Pacers and the Cavs and just your overall, I guess, thought on the Milwaukee series and what things may be applicable for Cleveland and what things they're going to have to see in Cleveland that they did not see with Milwaukee.
Well, I mean, I think the Darius Garland injury is huge. I mean, for those that don't follow the Cavs super close, I mean, that's a 2-time All-Star, a dude who averages 20 and 6, and for all of the Donovan Mitchell deserved praise, I mean, Garland at times is maybe even more of a factor. They both are great players. He missed the final 2 games of the Heat series with a toe injury, and toes can just be weird. So I think Kenny Atkinson's update yesterday was he still hasn't done any contact yet. So I think that will be kind of a big thing to watch. I actually just left Pacers practice a little bit earlier. I mean, from Rick Carlisle to Tyrese Halliburton, even Ben Mathurin, it's just the precision of how Cleveland plays, I think, is something that they really drove home. It's hard to find weaknesses. It's hard to find areas where, they're super susceptible. I mean, I looked at the Milwaukee series, and I'm like, yeah, they're old, and if Lillard out, they really lack ball handling. And if you can, play to your full court game and expose that backcourt, I thought Pacers in 5, whereas this series, I think it's obviously going to be much more difficult. I think a huge matchup will just be, in general, the front court. Miles Turner and Jared Allen are two very different centers.
Yep.
And then Evan Mobley's Defensive Player of the Year, and Pascal Siakam's one of the more gifted scorers you'll find at his position. So, do those two match up against each other? I think that element, we don't usually talk about bigs that much, but I think that element will be a huge factor in the series.
By the way, Darius Garland is listed right now as day-to-day. So give your proverbial, aren't we all? But the reality is, you're right, Kevin. I mean, remarkable player, special talent. Day-to-day to me, I would be surprised if he doesn't go certainly beyond, maybe he misses game 1, but I would think they get him out there sooner than later. I personally think for the Pacers, I've always felt this way. Didn't happen last year in Milwaukee. That defies my logic here. But if you've got to get a game on the road to win a series, in other words, you don't have home court, I think game 1's your best shot, to be honest with you. You come in, you try to sneak it, you steal it. Then after that, you let the chips fall as they may. But I think they've got to come out pretty quickly, the Pacers do in game 1, and get off to a good start. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think in general you just have to apply pressure to Cleveland that they didn't feel at all in round 1. I mean, it's kind of this group, and Donovan Mitchell has even mentioned this, like this group has not been beyond this round. For the most part, Boston dusted them in this round last year. Again, Miami, outside of maybe a little bit of game 2, they didn't test them in any significant way, shape, or form. I mean, you look at the Pacers' 4 playoff series they've played the last 2 years. I mean, beyond battle tested based off, Giannis and Madison Square Garden, and obviously Boston, the competitive nature to a lot of the end-of-game situations, the overtime games, the game winners. So all of that, I think, serves the Pacers really, really well, whereas Cleveland, I think it's a little bit like, hey, if we don't at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals, we will have wasted a great regular season, a historic regular season, really. So the quicker you can apply that pressure, kind of make them think, make them pause. I'm not saying like the Mitchell situation is like the Giannis situation of, wow, could this be his last game in a Bucks uniform sort of thing? But I think that's very different than really how the Pacers have probably encountered any opponent so far. So, whether it's game 1, certainly, game 1, oftentimes I think that's the thing. But, hey, can you steal that and then put all the pressure on them for game 2? If we're talking a week from today and you have earned a split and game 3 is a week from tonight, that's all that matters.
By the way, have you ever played, Kevin? We were talking earlier, a couple of things that we've learned on the show today, okay? Eddie at one point said back in his prime. Now, Eddie's 26 years old, so we determined that Eddie peaked at 12, which is cool, right? And that came off of a conversation where we were talking about recess games. Have you ever heard of, Kevin, or are you familiar with the structure known as funnel ball?
Well, first, I could kind of picture Eddie being an early puberty encounterer. So, maybe he was mashing home runs over the fence like Albert Bell at the age of,
That's right.
9 or 10.
That's right. Eddie Garrison, sixth grade wonder. Yep.
Right. Yeah. Danny Almonte of Decatur Township. I'm unfamiliar with funnel ball.
Okay. Exactly, right? I'm convinced this is something that, like, it had a 3-year window. It's like, literally, it's like the Dwight Eisenhower of playgrounds. You know what I mean? Like, it was big in the mid-'50s. So it's the thing, you see it on playgrounds, and it's always empty. Nobody's ever playing on it. But it's the pole, and then the top has, like, kind of a sloped square thing that has 4 holes, and presumably you throw a ball into it.
Yeah. Got it now.
Now,
yeah.
You've seen it, but have you ever actually seen this in use?
No, I think it's as much use as the tetherball did back in the day.
Which is exactly what I said. It's always near the tetherball, which only Napoleon Dynamite is playing. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
did we
Go
just
ahead.
switch to your Bluetooth?
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. All right, I want to ask you one other thing. Now that we got that out of the way about funnel ball, because we were talking about that earlier. The other thing is that it is, and when I think of May, and the Derby's this weekend. I love the Derby. I've got my horses that I'm picking. I just go off names, and then you shift to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and I've had a lot of fun at the Speedway over the years. I don't know that I've had as much fun as, truthfully, when you and I were out there doing the Carb Day show in the Pagoda Plaza, and you're just tossing out cans of beer for people, and it was awesome. I loved everything about it, and I got the impression that you also loved Carb Day. The thing you're most fired up for the month is what?
Well, boy, that was a great memory. Yes, I definitely had a little king or two that day. I don't know if I was supposed to be drinking those specific beers, but nonetheless, I did consume a few, courtesy of some of our great listeners out there. I can't wait. Obviously, I hope we can get, honestly, a day that probably looks like today from a weather standpoint. I have to share with you, last night, I'm sitting there and, I mean, you and I live decently close to each other. I mean, Jake, I feel like right now I go 6, 7, 8 houses. It goes pacer flag, racer flag, pacer flag, racer flag. It's like every other house I encounter right now is one or the other. And I'm a loser, and so I get into these modes at times where I'm like, I've got to watch old Indy 500 finishes on YouTube. And so last night, the kids' laundry had just gotten done. I thought, you know what?
Now tell me what happened and see if I can guess the year. Eddie and I did this yesterday, but go ahead, proceed.
Well, this is, I'm doing kids' laundry. I can't think of a more tedious thing that I hate to do than that. I'm like, I need a good 15, 20-minute video consumption here to get me through it. I'm trying to think of how I could – because I loved one of your calls, and I think I said it to you last year in late May, early June afterwards, but I feel like it gives it away if I share that call with you or try to make you guess. But I guess – I don't know if the hint's very good or not. You had a call late in the race involving shapes isn't the right term, but I don't know, maybe shapes or like direction. Can you follow me at all?
Yeah, I think, okay, it's interesting.
Don't overthink it, by the way.
It's interesting because I've told you this before. I don't ever remember saying something, right? Like when I hear it, I don't think, oh yeah, I remember saying that, because it's very just stream of conscious. But I think I remember you or someone else. The one that people have pointed out to me before is there was a time, I don't remember the reasoning for or where it was in the race, and maybe this is totally wrong, but I at one point I think I said that the cars looked like a bunch of marbles. Is that it or not it?
No, this is actually not it, and I'm going to butcher it, so I'll hopefully just cue your brain up. But it was last year's race is what I watched. And
okay.
For those out there that want to be a loser like me, you literally just YouTube search end of 2024 Indy 500 radio call, and your call is on top of, the final, I think it was the final 15 laps. So, one, I kind of had almost forgotten about the whole shadow aspect of it, and so, that was pretty unique and pretty cool to see. And then you had had to be like lap 193, 194, something like that late, where I think it went Pato. It had to have gone Pato, Newgarden, and Rossi, and you said something to the effect of, and again, I'm going to butcher it, but something of like Newgarden trying to sling or trying to dodge 2 arrows right now, and it really made me laugh. So, and I thought that was just a great way to describe the Arrow McLaren cars for those that aren't following, and Joseph Newgarden being sandwiched by them. So among the many great calls that you will have 3 weeks from Sunday, I thought that was outstanding from last year.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you watched the video. It is, listen, and we'll probably, maybe even to the audience, I will overplay this, I guess. It is the best, 3-week stretch of the year because the weather turns, the Pacers are playing, and it's a civic celebration. Whether you're a fan of the event or not, it's a civic celebration, and it's awesome. I mean, I love being at the race. I love being part of it. It's awesome. No question.
And to answer your question, because I don't think I did, there's like so many things I look forward to. Like, I'm low key looking forward to going over there and getting my freaking credential for Carb Day. Like, I mean, just like those little things, just like being inside the building, obviously Carb Day. I mean, when that alarm hits on, whatever the date is, the 25th, I forget exactly what date Sunday is this year, but
5/25/25, May 25th.
there you go. Yeah, I mean, pre-race taps, I mean, back home again, all of it. I mean, starting your engine. I mean,
Okay.
I could make a list of all I thoroughly enjoy when you guys, do your little what do you call them, roundabouts? I forget what they're called when you guys
Roundies.
practice.
Roundies, yeah.
Roundies, like when you guys get into that mode, I know it doesn't happen throughout 200 laps, but like when you get into that mode, I'm like, that helps, I love that. So yeah, I love it all, man.
Kevin, I thought in conclusion here, and we played it twice yesterday, but I want to commend you for asking what I think was probably the question most people wanted out of Doug Bowles yesterday, and asking about the possibilities of the president, attending. No sitting president has ever attended the Indianapolis 500, and just the logistics of that. I don't know, nor does Doug Bowles, obviously, whether or not that's going to come to fruition. But I thought it was a great question to ask, because I think a lot of people have been asking about that leading up to it ever since Team Penske made the visit to the White House.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. I mean, I'm sure you get it, 10 times more than I do, but yeah, it's easily the question I get the most right now, and I appreciated Doug answering it and fully realizing that the immense challenge that comes into that preparation, and I can't even begin. I mean, I've spoken with some people that what Pence was the sitting vice president, right? When
Correct.
he attended a few years back.
Correct.
Yeah, and just like talking with people that sit around. I think you went in those turn 2 suites. That either sit around there or were, around those suites. I mean, they said it was just, it was wild, just absolute chaos. So, yeah, if indeed that were to happen, to Doug's point, I think you would like as much heads up as possible. And B, I can't even begin to imagine the amount of security and just the craziness of what would transpire on that day.
Yeah,
so
the logistics of it all would be fascinating.
Yeah. And hoping for Doug's sake they get some answer, as soon as possible.
All right, Kevin, enjoy the weekend. So you said the weather outside is spectacular right now, right?
Glorious, yes. We'd sign up for this without a doubt here coming up in a few weeks.
Eddie, I don't know if you know this or not. It's like this 363 days a year in San Diego.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I hear. All right, Kevin, enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right, Kevin Bowen joining us on the program. You heard him mention the mini marathon. I will be running that again coming up on Saturday, and that leads us into our Franciscan Health Feel Good, Good for the Heart segment. And yes, we often talk about sports. We're going to do a little bit different this time, but I think it's an important conversation. We'll do it next. Friday. It's the bottom of the hour. You know what that means. It is time for our Franciscan Health Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday. And, of course, typically we are telling you the story of, as we have, I saw a story of an underdog volleyball team that I look forward to telling you about in the near future. We've talked about athletes that have gotten into the game last week, talking about a visually impaired basketball player that got the crowd on its feet at her high school. And I love telling those stories, but I also think it's very important, along with our friends at Franciscan Health, to remind all of you about cardiovascular care. And tomorrow's the mini marathon. I have talked openly about the fact that when I had a 100% blockage widowmaker heart attack in October of 2020, the question I had was, if I survive this, will I still be able to do in May the mini marathon? And that was important to me because I'd done a number of minis before that. I had been an active runner. I was in very good shape at the time of my heart attack. So that would lead to the question of, well, how do you have a heart attack if you're in that good a shape? And the simple answer of it is genetics. And I wanted to talk to all of you today and bring in one of the doctors from Franciscan about the conversation of how you might be at risk of a heart attack because of the way the genetic dominoes fall into place. And I thought it was important to bring in somebody who clearly could talk a lot more about that with a lot more insight than myself. It is a pleasure to introduce to the program Dr. George Walley, who is, and I want to make sure that I get this correct, advanced cardiac imager with Franciscan Health, our great friends at Franciscan Health, who were always talking about cardiovascular health. And folks, you know, number one ranked when it comes to your cardiovascular health is Franciscan Health. And we're talking about cardiovascular genetics. Now, doctor, I appreciate the time, and I certainly appreciate you, stepping down a few rungs on the ladder to be able to talk to someone of my intellect. So I'm assuming what that means is this, and then I want you to tell me in layman terms if I'm within the ballpark of accurate. Your particular title and your job description essentially means that you are looking at the images of one's genetic patterns to find out what that might mean for their cardiovascular health moving forward. Now, that's how I interpret that, and the floor is yours to tell me where I'm wrong.
Well, first, thank you for giving us the time today. It's always fun and exciting to sit down with you guys and go over the cardiovascular health. So one of the relatively new fields in cardiology has been what we call advanced cardiac imaging. And so with that, we do cardiac CT scans, cardiac MRIs of the heart itself, and it gives us the ability to see certain diseases that are driven by a pathogenic or an abnormal gene that a certain individual was born with. And there are multiple examples that I'm sure we will cover throughout this interview. But essentially, we get to see the manifestation of an abnormal gene, whether it's high cholesterol, thick heart, big heart, whatever the case might be.
And so at what point, doctor, can you begin to see, in other words, you can pick one of the specifics that you're talking about, the genetic traits that one can have that make them a candidate or make it, a higher risk for a cardiovascular issue. Is there a particular age where that trait or that gene may begin to show itself, or is it something that you can begin seeing even as a young person that could then present an issue even many years down the road?
Yeah, so it varies, but essentially, so I'll give you two examples. The first one is gene-driven high cholesterol. So you have strong family history driven by an abnormal gene. And in that case, you can have early manifestation of that disease as early as 18 or 21 years old, more commonly in 30 years old. And what we look for in those instances, for example, is calcium buildup in the heart vessels. Sometimes we can even see early plaque or fat buildup in these vessels, and what that gives us the ability to treat the disease in its early stages, and instead of waiting till after the fact, where someone in their 40s or sometimes 30s having a heart attack. So family-driven or gene-driven high cholesterol is a good example of that. So we try to capture the disease before it has a clinical manifestation or patients have an event.
Dr. George Walley is my guest from Franciscan Health, and we're talking about, cardiovascular health and the genetics thereof. Doctor, what you mentioned cholesterol, okay? I know that sometimes people can have, and we hear about this sometimes with athletes, where if you have either an enlarged heart or the thickness of the muscle of the heart is to a point that maybe it's too thick and there's not an elasticity of the heart. I don't know if that's too layman a term to say, but what other things can you look for genetically, or are you looking for genetically beyond just cholesterol, which is, I think, the one most commonly we hear about?
Yeah, so when it comes to athletes, there are 2 to 3 examples that come to my mind, and they're the most common ones. The first disease is called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, where you have abnormal thickening of the heart. And now that sometimes can be confused with what we call athlete's heart, where you have some thickening, but it's not of clinical significance. And that's why athletes get screened with EKGs, and sometimes if that raises a red flag, we do an ultrasound. And there are certain features on a heart ultrasound, which is also called an echo, or a cardiac MRI, where we look for certain things to identify if these patients have a truly abnormal thick heart that can lead to sudden cardiac death or syncopes, versus a healthy thickening that is reversible once patients stop their athletic career. So that's the first example. It's called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and 35% of the time you'll have genetic predisposition. There's also family history for that. Another condition that comes to my mind is called arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy, which is essentially an abnormality in the right side of the heart. And those two things sometimes are pretty silent. And the first manifestation would be passing out. It would be sudden death. And so we screen athletes early on, even if they're not having symptoms, to make sure they don't have the disease in its silent stage.
How exactly do you go about the testing? Is it a fairly invasive thing for people? You know, how would they find out how to even get tested, and what is the process by which you test them?
So we're blessed that we live in an era where the imaging has been so accurate, we don't need to do anything invasively at this point. So we start with an EKG, where you put leads on your chest. That's a good screening tool. And if that's abnormal, we do an ultrasound of your heart. We apply some gel on your chest, and then we hold the probe against your chest, and we take some pictures. Through these pictures, we can assess your heart function, get an idea of your how thick your heart is, if any, and get a rough estimate of the heart size. And if that by itself is not enough, then we can take it a step further and do what we call an MRI of your heart, similar to an MRI of your muscles or brain. And again, it's not an invasive test. You just lay flat on a table. We give you some contrast that is not too harsh on the kidneys. And the beauty of it, there's no radiation. And so you're young and you're not getting radiation with MRI. And that would be considered the gold standard if you want to get accurate assessment of the wall thickness, the heart mass. And we're able even to identify if there's any scar inside of the heart without doing biopsies. And those three modalities are 99% of the time are adequate to exclude any concerning disease in athletes. And then the last thing that comes to my mind is something called anomalous origin of the heart vessels. That would also be a reason for athletes to pass out, where the two heart vessels are not coming off from where they're supposed to, and we can also find that with non-invasive imaging modalities.
Dr. George Lole, my guest from Franciscan Health. Okay, doctor, so then once you discover, let's say hypothetically somebody comes in, they do a screening, you do notice that there are some genetic traits that you want to keep a closer tab or eye on, the process for that patient then becomes what in terms of monitoring or trying to take control of that situation?
So the nice thing about our practice nowadays is that it's all about shared decision making. And what we do is we get a thorough family history, we go over the individual history, and there are multiple variables that we have to factor as we quantify or try to quantify the risk of having problems in the future. And once we have an estimated risk, and it could be low, it could be intermediate or high, then we sit down with the patient and see what is a good fit for them. So, for example, some individuals, athletes or non-athletes, who carry high risk for sudden death if they have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, we would tell them that the benefit of having what we call a defibrillator outweigh the risk. On the other hand, some individuals carry low risk, and we would continue to see them every 6 months or maybe twice a year or once a year, and reassess and reevaluate the risk on an annual basis.
Doctor, I appreciate the conversation very, very much. Dr. George Lollet from Franciscan Health. Certainly wish you the best of weekends, and I think it's an important conversation. Folks, listen, I know, and it's a sports show. You're here to hear sports. I understand that, and I'm most appreciative of Franciscan allowing me the platform to get that word out, number one, but also for the ear of so many of you. I actually had another listener this week that just went in yesterday for a stress test because went and got a heart scan. Just $49. The heart scan's from Franciscan Health. Again, $49 Franciscan Health heart scan, and it is so important because, for example, got a message yesterday from a listener that had a heart scan. There were some warning signs on that, went in then and did a stress test, and then with the heart health risk assessment, got confirmation that not at risk really for a heart attack and that things looked like they were going to be okay. That peace of mind alone is worth a heck of a lot more than just the $49 it costs. Just $49 for an affordable heart scan you can pay out of pocket from Franciscan Health, the #1 heart program in Indiana for cardiology by Health Grades, #1 in Indiana for interventional coronary care and major cardiac surgery by CareChex. All the important steps to making sure that you are not in the position that I was in. And as I've always said, if there's just one of you each week, each month, each year that is getting that peace of mind, then I feel like we're doing the right thing here. We'll come back. John is actually at the horse track right now. We'll get you caught up to speed on what I mean by that. With the Kentucky Derby coming up, and one more time, I'll give you who I think is going to win the race, and I have no idea. I don't know anything about horse racing. I go by the name of the horses. But I know that one's a stalker like Eddie. We'll get to all of it next. J&V broadcasting live from Harrah's Hoosier Park. Perfect place to be on this, the eve of the Kentucky Derby, talking about horse racing in general. And I guarantee you he's going to be talking plenty about the upcoming Pacers Cavs series. Again, the big story with that, if you are just joining us on the program.
Where have you been?
Thank you, Eddie.
You're welcome. We thank you for listening now.
John Halliburton, which is Tyrese Halliburton's father, will not be for the foreseeable future at the Pacers games. Tyrese Halliburton commented on that earlier today. Tony East had posted that audio and video of Tyrese Halliburton talking. Halliburton, by the way, he was wearing very short shorts and a tank top. He looks in the video like a kid waiting for the school bus. That was the first thing I thought when I saw it. But, you know, that's obviously a tough situation for Halliburton. And it is my hope that, and yes, I know people are like, why are you guys still talking about this? Because it's a story that has had changes as it's gone on. And yesterday, the latest in those changes being that we now know that Halliburton, that his father will not be at the games. And the league, I believe, the NBA, had a lot to do with that. I don't think, and again, I don't think that John Halliburton's father has ever gone looking for trouble. I mean, it's not like he's picking fights per se, but I also think just in terms of an overreach of the areas where it's appropriate to be, this is not an isolated incident. And so while nothing was ever overly egregious, like I said, you know, you can get a ticket for going 49 and a 45, and it's not a big deal, but you get enough of them, and eventually some points are on your license. Easiest way to say it. Kentucky Derby coming up tomorrow. Let's go ahead and now let me name for you, Eddie, the horses here, and then I want you to give me your win place show. Okay?
Oh, gosh. Okay, sure.
Just listen, and as I say the name of the horse, you just make a note of it, and then at the end, once I'm done, you tell me your big three.
Let me find a piece of paper.
Okay.
All right.
Here we go. You ready? Citizen Bull. Some of these I may mispronounce because they're spelled weird, and they're obviously sometimes like made up words. So bear with me if I'm incorrect. Citizen Bull, Neokoi, Final Gambit, American Promise, Admired Daytona, Luxor Cafe, Journalism, Burnham Square, Flying Mohawk, East Avenue, Publisher, Tistastic, Render Judgment, Coal Battle, Sandman, Sovereignty, Chunk of Gold, Owen Almighty, and Beza. Go ahead.
Okay.
Do you have your...
So, to win and to show, right?
Win is win. Place,
right.
Place is runner-up and show is third.
Okay. So, to win, I'll go with Luxor Cafe.
Okay.
Then, technically, would the show be next?
Place.
Okay. We'll go with Journalism.
Okay.
And then to show, Sovereignty.
Journalism, the 3-1 favorite. Sovereignty, you went with, not bad, 5-1. And who did you have winning it?
I had Luxor Cafe.
15-1. Not bad. I'm going to go with Win, Render Judgment. That's a mid-pack horse. I will go with Place, East Avenue. And for show, I will go with Chunk of Gold. Although I have to admit, those are all dark horses. You need at least one favorite in there, right? So I should probably go with Sovereignty as my place. So how about Render Judgment, Win, Sovereignty to Place, and Chunk of Gold to show? That's where I'll place it right now. But you just, like I said, you never know. That's kind of the beauty of horse racing. Okay, the other thing that we know is this. The Cleveland, Indiana game number 1, which we will talk plenty about on Monday. If the Golden State Warriors win tonight, then Indiana and Cleveland will tip off at 8 o'clock on Sunday. So if you are a later start person, you want the Warriors to win tonight. If the Houston Rockets win tonight and force a Game 7 in that series, then the Indiana Pacers Cleveland Cavaliers game will begin at 6 p.m. So, Eddie, you are walking around, if I'm not mistaken today, you are strutting around everywhere wearing your Golden State Warriors shirt, correct?
That is correct.
Because you want Golden State to win. You want an 8 o'clock start.
I do.
You're a late night guy.
I enjoy a later start, yes.
Okay.
I'm like you, Jake. I stay up late.
I don't know. Let me see what the weather is supposed to be like on Sunday. If you're running the mini tomorrow, here's the forecast for that. It looks tomorrow like it's going to be at, let's see, roughly, not terrible. Not terrible. Throughout the course of the day, the low of 52, not terrible. High of 64, that's going to be between 2 and 3. Says the temperature range. Now, how's this possible? Says Saturday's low will be 52. The temperature range will feel like 43. Well, then the low's 43, right?
Please, Jake, let's not go down this path again.
I don't understand that.
It's
That makes
been a
no
great
sense.
day. I don't. We've avoided the NFL draft attendance for 2 days now, and
That doesn't make any sense at
not
all.
that I'm counting. And now we get back on this. Oh, come on! You were so good.
I don't get it though. Which is it? Is it going to be 43 or is it going to be 52?
Well, at
looks
one point,
like a chance of rain around 30 to 40% over the course of the mini itself. I want to know how hard it's going to rain. That has a big factor in it. But it's kind of fun. I'm telling you, just soak it in, have fun with it. Make the best of it. No, if you are doing the mini marathon for the first time tomorrow, this is the most important thing. Just one person's 7-minute mile is another person's 12-minute mile. Do what's best for you. Have fun with it. Soak in the crowd on the side, the bands, the people that are playing music. Have fun with it. And then afterwards, sure, you will look to see what your time is. No one else will care. No one else is going to look up and see what your time is and hold it against you or whatever else. And my other tip, when you get to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the mini marathon, as you run underneath, you go down to go into the tunnel under turn 2, right? Sprint. When you get to the bottom of that, sprint to get up as fast as you can, to get up that ramp as fast as you can, and then, just so you know, there's public bathrooms to the right when you get up there. Trust me, that's more important than you realize. It's better than the portalettes. JMV will be up next. He will carry you home until 6 o'clock. I'll be on tonight for Trackside at 7 o'clock, filling in for Kevin for Beyond the Bricks at 8 o'clock tonight with Mike Thompson. Certainly look forward to seeing everybody over the course of the weekend and then talking about Pacers Cavs. We'll do that Monday. We thank you for listening to Query & Company.